Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day, there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make their businesses and themselves successful. And today we're going to be talking primarily to women, but I tell you what, for you men out there, pay attention, because we need you to be supporting all of the very important, very powerful women in your lives. So please join me in welcoming Sarah Walton to our program today. Welcome, Sarah. How are you?
I am wonderful, Deb. Thank you so much for having me. And boy, did you just speak the truth in that intro. I love that. Yes.
I know. Such fun, such fun. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will jump into this because we are going to have a fascinating discussion. So Sarah Walton is a business coach and sales expert who's been featured on The Today Show. She has spoken at women's conferences all over the world and has helped hundreds of women start and grow businesses they love. She works with a handful of one-on-one clients, runs the Sales Mastermind, and leads her exclusive Abundance Academy for women in business. She's the voice behind the Game On Girlfriend podcast and the face of Sarah Uncut on YouTube, making her the go-to source for no-nonsense business coaching and real-life, mind-blowing abundance. From growing up in a low-income household with a single mom to helping moms turn their passion into businesses that they love, that can support their families, Sarah's lived experience shows how women can powerfully change their lives and the lives of their families and communities. Through her successful coaching business, which she designed to put more money in the hands of more women, Sarah transitions from being just another coach to being a wonderful change maker, change machine. So again, Sarah, welcome.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, Deb. This is going to be such a great conversation. And your energy is always so great on your show that it's so fun to jump right into it and start talking about what's possible for more women.
Thank you.
So good.
And so much is possible. But the trick is we have to want it, and we have to know we can get it, and we have to go for it. And that is so much of what you do. But tell us a little bit more about how it is that you got to where you are today.
Yeah. It started when I was very young. To be totally straight, we're talking 3-4 years old. I was watching the Nutcracker on a PBS fundraiser for those of us that are old enough to remember what that is. Yeah, they had this beautiful Nutcracker. And I remember just pointing to the screen and saying to my mom, Mama, I want to do that. I didn't know what it was. I didn't care. I wanted it. And we were too poor for me to get dance lessons, right? So I really worked my assets off, like I like to say, in the basement. MTV, for those who remember what that is, Janet Jackson, Paula Abdul throwing chairs. I mean, those were my dance teachers at the time. And where I was raised in Sandy, Utah, one of the biggest things you could do in high school would be part of the dance team.
Right.
And so I would go to games with my brothers. I have 5 brothers. I would go to the games. I'd watch, and I was just like, oh my God, I have to get on that team. So at 16, finally, right? I'm so happy. I get to try out Janet Jackson, bruised knees and all, right? And I made the team. And I was so stinking excited. And I lived in this tight-knit community where people were bringing over single roses. It was like, congratulations. Oh my God.
Aw.
And then I got the letter that said how much the jacket would cost and the costumes and the shoes. And I don't know, Deb, if you've ever had one of those moments where you like sort of pull away and watch yourself go through something. It's not fun.
That crushing defeat.
Yeah. Like I felt my stomach drop through the floor. My hands were sweaty. My mouth got dry because there was no way.
Right.
I mean, when I say we were poor, there were times we would have half a loaf of bread that my mother had made from scratch and a jar of honey.
And 5 boys. I mean, that's part of it. Those 5 boys ate a lot.
I mean, it was unbelievable. Right. And so what I decided to do, because I was like, this dream that I've had since I was three is not going anywhere. I'm fighting for this thing. I know you guys are all shocked that I was frisky, but what I did is I went and got a job at a little kiosk at the mall. Now, if you don't know what a mall is, just think Stranger Things, people. Hang on with me.
There are still malls in the world, right?
It's like people are like malls. Yeah. So I got a job at a little kiosk. It was the 80s. I was selling stuff nobody needed, but it was cool. That's what we did. And I got my paycheck, and it was enough to put the deposit down on the dance costumes. But I didn't have a bank account.
Right.
And so at the time, there were these service desks at the grocery store. So I took my check and I was like, Mom, I got to go get this cashed, right? So we were walking into the grocery store. It's my mom and my younger half brother. And as we're walking in, she says, Sarah, the strawberries are on sale. Can we get some? Now, if you're a psychologist, your head just exploded, but that's a whole other episode. So what I did is I walked in there. I said, I'm thinking of the deposit and I'm thinking of the strawberries. And I'm like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah. $2.
I said, go get the strawberries.
Yep.
I was like, go get the strawberries. Fine. So I go get my check cashed. I have my money in my hand. I'm so excited I might die. And I'm walking up and down the aisles trying to find them, specifically in the, express checkout. And they're not there.
Right. Because they were getting strawberries.
Right. So you'd think they'd be in they weren't there. So I'm looking up and down all the aisles and I see them in line with a cart full of groceries. And it is my brother's favorite breakfast cereal. It's milk, it's bread, it's lunch meats for his lunches. The damn strawberries are there, right? And I'm looking at this cart filled with groceries and I'm thinking, I can take care of my family or I can get something I've wanted my entire life, but I cannot do both.
Right. And you're 16.
Correct. And in that moment, I decided I would never be able to take care of my family and myself. And I took that belief, that decision at 16, forgot I'd made the decision, by the way, just made it like we do. And I moved out of my house. I went to UCLA. I was the first woman in my family to get a college degree. I lived in Europe for 2 years. And then I came back to the States and moved to New York City. Make it there. You can make it anywhere, right?
Right. You gotta throw your hat in the air.
That's right. Exactly. I throw my hat. I'm very Doris Day, right? Or Sex in the City, depending on your age. And I have this huge, amazing job. I have this corner office. I have a team of people. I got a FICA tree in my office. I'm feeling really great. Except I hate my life and I'm completely miserable. I have 2 children I never see, like literally don't see them unless it's the weekends.
Right. Because you are working your little nose to the grindstone, fingers to the bone, whatever.
And why am I doing that? Because I decided I could never take care of my family and myself. And so my family was fine.
Right.
But I was not. And there was one day where my daughter called me and she just said, Mama, I miss you. And I freaking lost it. Not in like weeping, just into something just broke. And that was the moment I remembered the grocery store. And it was like, it was almost like getting hit on the back of the head with a baseball bat. I know that's a violent image, but it felt like, it was like, what?
Right.
Right. It really popped me into a new realm of like, wait a minute, there's a 16-year-old girl running my life. And that was the day I quit. There's like a Sarah-shaped hole in the wall. Right. And I was like, I almost got divorced over it. I didn't care. I was like, I am not living my life this way anymore.
Right.
And so often people ask me, they're like, Sarah, what happened the day in the grocery store? What did you buy? And I don't mean to leave people hanging, but I bought the groceries that day. And another mom in my neighborhood heard what had happened and she bought my costumes for me. And I know it's like, oh my God. And in 2019,
women support women.
There it is. There it is. And in 2019, I tell this story a lot. It's known as my grocery store story. People know me, right? They're like, oh my God, this story. And sometimes when we do that as business owners, we can almost forget how real it is. So in 2019, I held a conference in Salt Lake City. I decided to bring my worlds all together. And I got to bring the woman who bought my costumes up on stage with me and thank her publicly. It was,
oh my gosh,
like sobbing everywhere. You guys can go to YouTube. You can see me hugging her and crying, like unbelievable. Right. And I just had to say, had this woman not done what she did, I don't know that I would be doing what I'm doing today. And this is what women do with money. This is what happens when women have access to more money. This is how we actually use it. And I got to thank her publicly. And that was amazing because she actually passed away in 2020.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I'm so grateful I got to thank her. and be with her and acknowledge her in front of people who just know the quote unquote grocery store story, it got to be very real for people and for me as well. It brought it back home to me too. And so that's why I do what I do. I want to actively teach women the skills needed to put more money in the hands of more women, because I look at the wars happening. I look at what's happening in our world. And if we can drop bombs within inches of where we need it, why are we not dropping food and medicine and water exactly where it's needed? This is bananas. And I have a feeling if there was more money in the hands of more women, we wouldn't drop bombs on each other's children. I think we would be dropping food, water, and medicine. And it's time to turn this tide. And right now, the most powerful tool we have access to is money. And so we've got to understand it and know how it works and deal with any internal blocks we have about expanding into it and understanding, of course, we're capable of handling. We're actually really, really good with it. And anything you need, despite what those guys on Wall Street with their fancy, AirPods and shaky videos tell you, it's fourth grade math. There's nobody who can't do this. And I really want to empower as many women as we can.
Right. And so much in there to discuss. We as women take care of others. I mean, that is just genetically ingrained in us, right? Whether you're believing about, Adam and Eve or any of those, women take care of everybody. And we always put ourselves last, and it's, and of course, one of the bad things is if we try to change that, oh my gosh, we're selfish, we're a bee, we're, all of those various things. But I love what you're saying, is because when we actually think about ourselves, then we are able to better help others, right? We can't financially, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, support anyone else if our well is dry. I mean, I went to Iowa over the weekend, and I flew. It's too long to drive there. And so, of course, there's always the discussion about the masks. And they always say, put yours on first before you help someone else. And, to me, that is just absolutely profound. If we don't help ourselves first, we really cannot truly help everyone else. We might be doing a 99% job. We might be doing a 20% job helping others, whatever, but we're not going to really be able to help others until we have helped ourselves.
Agreed. And I think one thing I do want to start to rework for all of us as well is this idea that it is just women. I think we are very capable of multitasking, right? So there's a physiological fact. If you're born into a female body, there is more gray connective tissue in our brains between the right and left hemisphere. And what that allows us to do is the joke that women have 45 tabs open in their brains all the time, right? But
and the one singing, where's the one singing?
Yes. And that is our ability to multitask, right? And men have less connective tissue between their hemispheres. Again, if you were born in a male body. And that means they can focus on one thing at a time very, very well. And that's why I always joke with women who have like a 2-year-old on their hip and the garbage in their hand. And they're like, could you grab something? And the guy's like, well, but I'm watching TV.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing that to be a jerk. No. Right? He's doing one thing.
Thinking, yes, I'm watching TV.
And that is actually a fantastic skill, right? We just both need to be aware of that, meaning both headspaces, right? Need to be aware of the strengths of the other so that neither one is taken advantage of. Right. Because you can set a guy on a task and they're I'm seeing him for hours. I don't know. Right. Like you really want to watch both ways. But one of the issues for us as we're raised, those of us that are raised as women, right, is a phenomenon called high functioning codependence. And that phrase was actually coined by Terry Cole. She's a therapist in Manhattan, and she has a great book. I don't love the title. I love Terry, but I don't love the title. The title is Boundary Boss. It's not my favorite, but she really breaks down this concept of high functioning codependence. And what this is that from a very young age, our ability to function at a high level, our ability to multitask, right? That is innate. You're correct on that part. But there's a sinister thing that starts to come in through society, through osmosis. There's no big bad. There's no one going, let's do this, right? It's just happened. And we need to be aware of it so we can undo it or choose it, not just be at the effect of it without being aware. And it starts very young with things like, don't cry. Where's my pretty girl?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, smile, honey. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
With those little tiny comments, what they're actually saying is, your emotions are bothering me. Please stop having them.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get rewarded for not having emotions.
Right.
And we as women do
Mm-hmm.
this to each other.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you heard one woman say about another, oh my God, she's so selfless?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's no self.
Mm-hmm.
There is less self.
Mm-hmm.
We're rewarding that. And
Mhm.
that's where the codependence piece comes
Mhm.
in. Is society rewards us for working ourselves to death,
Mhm.
right? And having no life.
Mhm.
And then they say things like, God, you're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
it's
you're like,
really,
yay.
really tough.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And the whole emotion thing, because of course, little boys, oh my gosh, they're really told, don't cry. No.
That's exactly right.
And so they grow up thinking that it's really horrible to show any type of emotion.
Correct.
And unfortunately, then they go into running companies, being managers, all those, and they're, and I think we're seeing finally men who are embracing that more, and I'm putting this in my little air quotes, feminine side.
Correct.
And realizing they can have empathy. They can, and I think COVID in some ways kind of accelerated that, because they had to all of a sudden understand what the heck was going on with their employees and their customers and all of that. But and women are embracing, some of those masculine traits. But the nice thing is when we still realize, okay, but what makes us what we are those kind of feminine traits of empathy, of caring for others. But, and of course we know this, science shows this time and time again, women are incredibly good at math, at science, at all of those very analytical things, which means they can run a business.
Of course.
And we're finally saying, hey, yeah, no, I can do that.
Yeah, there's actually a really great book on that called See Jane Lead, which is a hilarious title, by the way. And it was written years and years ago, but it's still something I'll give to people as gifts here and there. And just talking about how easy it is for women to cross over into the masculine, right? That using both is really, really imperative.
Right.
And that book was written at a time that we hadn't seen men start to cross over themselves. And it is so great to see this, because if we can pull in the strengths of both, oh my God, like we need both.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can't shut down our feelings and run ourselves ragged and just to make sure everyone else is comfortable. Right. And we can't have people who don't care how anybody thinks and are just railroading things. Right. We need like the empathy coming from the masculine side, and we need the power of the multitasking, of the ability to do things so like organically and thinking of other people's feelings at the same time. We need that combo to be strong and healthy. And my hope, very hopeful at the moment, my hope is that we're really starting to see both sides step into the other. And it is so important. It's so important that we allow ourselves and each other the space to figure this out.
Right. I still keep thinking about emotion and the fact that, especially in business, I have not been in a business environment as in an office in many, many years. But I remember being absolutely mortified when I got so angry at someone that I started to cry. Right.
Yes.
And all of these various things. And to me, one of the most moving things I remember seeing in recent times was Queen Elizabeth. Now, I'm one of those people. I love the monarchy, the king. But I remember when she was at Prince Philip's funeral. Of course, there she was all by herself. For a variety, and the camera showed that one tear, and it was, you knew that woman was, of course, absolutely devastated, but she did allow herself to show that emotion, that that British stiff upper lip, it quivered, but I think that's one of those things, and we still really obviously frown on men showing emotion. All we have to do is look at the recent political convention to see that people went, oh no, boys don't cry. And then when you realized why, it was like, oh, now that's pretty cool, right? But heaven forbid a CEO show emotion. But there is an appropriate time for it. We were just talking, I'm in Atlanta, and as we are recording this, we had a school shooting yesterday. And the sheriff, who is this man's man, right? He's a Georgia sheriff. He cried. And there is absolutely no one who would think less of him for that. And I think that is showing that we are embracing that there are appropriate times. And the opposite is true too. When it's okay to really be joyful and happy for someone, as opposed to, well, I'm the boss, I have to be stoic, I can't show favoritism. I mean, any of those things. And so it's exactly what you said. We're finally starting to realize that we can show all of that, and it's okay.
Yeah. Not only is it okay, I think it's actually necessary.
Right.
Right. Because as leaders, you're a role model. And if you're role modeling robotics, well, there's not going to be much heart and soul in your business. And we know that matters. And at a time now where we are watching a collapse of faith in institutions, right? People understand who they're buying from, why they're buying from them, why that business got started, who the people are who started. They know everything now. And they are paying attention. Buyers are paying attention to where their money is actually going. Thank God. I think that is so powerful.
Right.
You don't want to give it to
for anybody who says,
robot.
oh, it's those millennials. Blah. I'm sorry, we raised them.
Yeah, we did. And it's not just them, it's everybody.
Right.
I mean, Gen Z is even more so. I mean, I watch them, my children, heaven help me. Like I watch them and they're like, no, I'm not spending money there. And I'm like, good for you. You did the research, you found out, and with the massive access to information that we have and the access to persons, like in personalities that we have now, who you are as a human being is no longer hideable. We used to be able to kind of flub it, right? You cannot now. And people know when you're being phony. They know when you're not being authentic, and they don't want to buy from that anymore. And so I think if you want to just be cold, hard, bottom line, and you're just edging into being more emotional and understanding, letting your heart show is a good thing, let the bottom line lead you for a little bit. Let the facts that you will increase sales when you're being a person, just let that lead you for a little bit as you're learning how to do this. I think that's so important because for some people to start dipping their toes in this and understanding it's their own mindset, it's their own reaction set, it's their own habits that are actually causing some of the bumps they're seeing in their own business. I think for some people it's very challenging. So take those first steps however you can, because the knowledge is in the action.
Right.
The knowledge is in crying at a school shooting because hello, that is so freaking appropriate. What else can we do? Right. Until people decide we're done with this now. Right. We don't have that
because
yet,
anger is also appropriate.
Of course. And that's another thing I teach. I teach this to women a lot, is that anger is my favorite emotion, not in being angry at people, right? But understanding that anger is one of the most loving emotions our body, mind, the humanity, whatever, has created for us, because it lets us know there's been a boundary violation internally.
Okay.
And so when you are angry, that's actually self-love coming out and saying, hey, yo, whoa.
Yeah, I need protected here.
Yeah, pay attention. Something's been crossed. You're going to get hurt. And it's like, oh, thank you. Right. And instead, people are so afraid to be angry. Right. And there's a lot of racial, right, and gender norms that are like getting broken down now that has caused that sort of belief system. And I hope we can, all of us, embrace in each other and understand that anger is a loving, internally loving emotion. And we are still responsible for our behavior. We are still responsible for how we respond. I'm not saying throw a chair. I love anger. I'm saying I am so grateful we have the emotion that can sound the alarm bells that something is going off the rails. And I think that's critical.
Right. It's like pain. When we have physical pain, it is your body saying, hello, something's wrong. And unfortunately, we have learned to medicate it away, ignore it, all of those things. And we obviously should not do that. And there are other things, fatigue, all of those things are telling us something needs to change. And as we know, women are real good at pushing through all that, right? Working until exhaustion, all of those things. And, again, we can't help others if we can't help ourselves. I joke that I frequently take a nap And it's like 10 minutes or at least I rest.
Mm.
And and I tell people I've gone back to kindergarten. When I'm done, then I want my graham crackers and my milk, right? But it is so funny because when I tell people that,
Mm.
nobody goes, oh. They all go, yeah, we all need naps.
Yes.
And so we need to give ourselves permission to say, okay, I need to go recharge my battery for a little bit. And it's perfectly fine to do that. And I don't care if you're 6 years old or my age, or anything in between and beyond.
Mm.
We need to
Mm.
pay attention to ourselves.
Yes.
And it's funny because we talk about it as like, oh, it's women's intuition and things like that. Those are good things.
Wonderful things.
And
Yeah.
and it's kind of like the fight and flight type of thing also. When we ignore those, we do it at our own peril.
Mm-hmm. And part of the issue is, as women, we're raised that those emotions might make someone else uncomfortable. So
Yes.
don't express them.
Or
Right.
it
And that
makes
is
us
part of where the
weak.
push through. Right. Exactly. And neither one of those are real.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as we are responsible for our reactions to our anger or how we share our emotions, that is 100% our responsibility. Someone else's response to that is not your responsibility. It's their responsibility. And I think we need to start talking about that more. And I'm not saying go around yelling at people. You can always express your emotions with care and empathy and clarity, right? You never have to be a jackwagon when you're saying how you feel, right? You can do it with beauty, actually. And that we really want to start to harness that in each other and watching our own reactions so other people feel safe to express their emotions too, right? It really is a give and take. And in business, it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere.
Right.
Customer service. How do you handle that? Somebody called out sick and then you saw them at Disneyland, like whatever, like pick a thing, right? We've all had to go through it. What are you going to do with that? And you learning how to understand emotions and honoring them, grace and dignity, game changer. Absolutely. When I work with clients, they just watch their revenue skyrocket because you understand that emotion is at the heart of everything and mostly business.
Right. And it's about having those people around you to support you and know that they are truly supporting you and they aren't just there because, say they're paid to be. I was at a big event over the weekend, got real tired. And so I went and I laid down for a while. And it was so funny because somebody was going to come disturb me. And somebody else said, she's resting. You let her rest.
Oh, I love it.
And, and of course the person went, oh, okay. I mean, and now obviously if there'd been an emergency, that's totally different, but it was like, no, this can wait. But who are our team members?
Yes.
And I think that's the other thing that we as women somehow think we have to go this alone. No, you have your mommy groups, and you have your church groups, all of those things. Women, we need to band together and back to the financial aspect. How can we help others?
Yes.
And sometimes we can't help them financially, but maybe we can say, hey, do you need me to stuff envelopes? What do you need that I can do?
And vice versa. Right. I mean, it's all of it. And we're here for each other. And this is why I say, I think the course correction here for women, right? It's going to take men to support men, right? About being emotional, getting into those warmer sides of themselves, not having to be robots. That will take men working with men. And for us, it's going to take women supporting women and men supporting women.
Right.
It's interesting that it has to go both on this side of the table. It just does, just because of the way that society is structured at the moment. And I think one of the best things we can do is what your friend did, right? Of like, don't bother her.
No, excuse me.
No, not right now. And then the other is really calling each other out. How are you? This is my favorite. If you ask a mother, how are you?
I'm fine.
Like, my kids are this, my kid did that, my husband did that.
This is
my
true. Yes. She's
like,
not in there at all.
And I'm like, no, you. And they're like,
they often don't know how to answer.
They don't. And I think that's where we can really support each other. I was actually just in this situation last night. My daughter's on the dance team in her school. Of course she is.
Of course.
Her choice, I swear. And we go and decorate the seniors' door because they're just starting the school year. And it's like, oh my God, this big, huge thing. And there was one of my fellow mothers several times I said, how are you? And she's like, oh my God, aren't they so cute? I said, how are you? And I had to keep asking her. And I finally pulled her aside. She was trying to like cut boards. I said, let them do it. Come here with me for a minute. Right. I just went, I said, what's your favorite food? She was like, I don't.
Well, my kids like.
She started with, she goes, well, I always eat the cake. I go, what do you love? What do you like? Where are you? And she came back to, I felt kind of bad doing that. I was like, they're teenagers. They can freaking decorate a door. I was like, get over here. Right. And it took a hot second for her to settle back into the idea that she's a person. And that sounds so strange, but we really need to do that for each other. And you don't have to do what I did, right? It was a little dramatic, but we had the time. We had the time to go. We were in this beautiful neighborhood. We had time to just walk for a second. We don't always have that, but just a moment to say, oh my God, I love your hair today. I really love your shoes. I love what you're doing with your nails. Oh my gosh. If you're in the grocery, this is a good one in the grocery store. Oh my God. Do you cook all that? You are amazing.
Yeah. Can I come to your house?
Yeah, exactly. Those sorts of things. And watching out for creating the codependence, right? Because we as women are rewarded for what we can produce for other people. So there's always this like, do you love what you're cooking? And watch them go. These little moments, right? And I'm not saying like, I've got it all figured out. Heaven knows I do not. I'm very careful as a coach. Like coaches are like, I know everything. No, I'm going to screw things up, people. I'm a person. No work lifts you up out of your humanity. I'm a person, but I think that if we can start to say these things to each other, and by the way, I had a friend say it to me just a couple days ago. We need to be able to say these things to each other and call out when the high functioning codependence is running the show and the human being behind all that work is starting to disappear. I say to women all the time, if the whole family's watching TV and you're folding laundry, something's wrong. You are not here to make sure everyone else has a great life while you do nothing. No. And other people are capable of folding clothes and doing grocery shopping and planning meal. Like there isn't some like prize that a woman was born with that she's the only one who can do these things. It's absolutely inaccurate.
Well, and it drives me nuts when women lose their identity. It just, like I'll see like somebody on Facebook, it's both names on their Facebook page. I'm like, no. But the one that really always stands out for me, many years ago, I was a volunteer at a Special Olympics golf tournament in Colorado, and the Denver Bronco wives were helping out. And so we had this golf tournament volunteer thing. And so this was long enough ago that John Elway was the quarterback and he was married to Janet. Now anybody in Denver knew who Janet Elway was. I mean, that was just kind of the thing. But her name tag said Janet. That's all it said. But we knew she was Janet Elway. And there was this other young lady who was there, lots of Bronco wives. It was really pretty fun. But her name tag said Mrs. Steve Sewell.
Oh, heavens. Yeah.
And and I went up and I introduced myself because I'm shy, right? And so I introduced myself and I said, I'm Deb. And she said, I'm Mrs. Steve Sewell. And I said, what's your first name? And she said, I'm Mrs. Steve Sewell.
No.
And I said, oh no, honey, what name did your mother give you?
Oh my God.
And she said, I am Mrs. Steve Sewell. And she walked off. And I was just flabbergasted. I mean, I had no idea what to say after that. Unfortunately, she wasn't Mrs. Steve Sewell for too much longer. But, how many times do we do that? We're so-and-so's mom. We're so-and-so's wife. And I know that in a lot of cases, men get caught in this from a business perspective. They are only the CEO of, and things like that. And I think it is so important that we still remember and embrace who we are. It's okay to be so-and-so's mom and it's, fabulous to do that. But who are you as that person? Who are you as that standalone entity that then is able to do everything else?
Yeah. And, it's very tempting for both genders to continue to do that.
Right.
Because our egos, right, our brains have not caught up evolutionarily.
I mean, how many times do you hear I'm the quarterback?
Right.
Right.
No, you're a person who happens to play in that position. And, I think the rise of like humanity, right, as being the humans, I think is going to be really important, but it's also important for us to recognize we are working against the ego, which literally has not evolved to where we are.
Right.
We are not in a position where we have to disappear into the crowd in order to be okay. We're not in a position we have to disappear into family in order to survive. And it really is a survival instinct. So if you watch yourself falling towards that, there's no self-judgment. It's like, oh, ooh, I let that take over for a second. Okay, but what do I want?
Right.
And that part, I think, again, like I always say, nothing can lift us up out of our humanity. We are all human beings. We're going to fall into the natural, I want to say, tips and tricks that come with our ego build, right? Like it's just built that way. So having the self-compassion and the empathy to go, oh my gosh, I disappeared into my husband.
Right.
I disappeared into my work. I disappeared into my title because it feels safer. And that we just want to understand that's a survival instinct that actually no longer serves us, but it's still an instinct. So to recognize that, have a lot of compassion for it, and then start to create something new instead.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and nobody is ever just a.
Right.
One of the ones that and I never let somebody get away with this. I call them on it. I'm just a mom. No. You are doing one of the most important jobs there is. But and yeah, I mean, there are lots of justas, right? I am just a employee. I am, and to me, that's so self-deprecating, and whatever it is, it's important, and so own it, but don't own it as the title. I went to a conference one time and this wonderful woman was speaking and she said, when you introduce yourself, don't use your title. Don't say Deb Creer, president of. She said, because to be honest, nobody cares.
So true.
And, and now, do we still do it? Yeah, because like you said, it's the ego. Some of it is, okay, well, everybody else here is the president of, so I better be president of also. But, and I use, when I do the graphics for the podcast, I use typically somebody's title. But that to me is the way to show why they're the expert. But I love the fact that like on LinkedIn, we've kind of gotten away from doing that, right? We now describe what it is that we do. And so, yeah, we're never just a fill in the blank.
Yeah, ever. And it just does all of us such a disservice to do that. And,
and don't refer to somebody that way either.
Agreed.
Oh my gosh, smack.
Well, I think part of what it is too is when I call it a survival instinct, like we all know if we pop our head up, like we watch it, right? We watch leaders. We in the United States tend to kill our leaders if they get a little, you know what I mean? Like we don't like when someone pops out of the norm. We don't like when someone starts to break things down. And saying I'm just keeps your head right under the radar. And I call that critique that tends to come when you lift your head above the radar, right? I call that success tax. When you start to get really successful and you start to really break out of any mold anyone's ever tried to put you in, people are going to criticize you. And we know
they do the whack-a-mole.
We know that. Yeah, that's right. We do. We whack people who pop their heads above. And we know that instinctually. So if we can stay under the radar by just being whatever, we're safer. And again, that's a self-compassion to come in and go, oh my gosh, I just did that because I was worried that they wouldn't like me. I just did that because I was scared for my own safety. Not like you're in imminent physical danger, but like psychological harm. And understanding that can just have us ease into a whole new reality of like, oh no, I love myself so much. One, I'm not even mad I did that because I totally got why I did it. And I'm not doing it again. You know what I mean? Like just really stepping into something new there. And I think in business, especially, this can play a massive role because I tell my clients all the time, break your industry. And they're like, what? I'm like, do something no one else has done. Be true to you. The only way to do that is to keep your head down and stay focused on you. If you start looking at competitors, you accidentally start to copy.
Right.
That's not, we don't need more. We need you.
Right.
And I think the more that we can get that in business, that's when people like knock stuff out of the park and make things really amazing.
Right. Well, speaking of that, I think it is a challenge for women and especially financially, and so why is it such a struggle for women?
Oh, well, there's so many factors for that. But the obvious being, women couldn't have their own credit cards or put their names on a mortgage until 1976. For the majority of the time, I'm talking 98% of the time that the world has used money, women were not allowed to handle it. We were passed from fathers to husbands or brothers, right? And so this is new to be honest, like in the evolution of humanity, I'm talking about how the ego hasn't evolved, right? And the mindset around this and how freaking good women are with money. I mean, it is mind blowing how good women are with money, right? Is this idea that we're not supposed to be handling it. And that does drive a lot of behavior. It's fascinating. People go, no, I don't think that. And then they'll come back to me a couple of days later and they're like, you know what? I think I was totally thinking that because it seeps in. Nobody sat you down and said, you shouldn't handle money, Deb.
Right.
Nobody did that. Right.
No,
but you get notices, right? Like, oh, women are so emotional. They shop, right? It's like, you know, these things that we hear. And so you get that message very, very young. So the other thing that can happen is this idea that, okay, so I said in the opening, money is the most powerful tool we have access to. And I truly believe that, right? But nobody teaches you how to use it. And the sexism, the misogyny that's still at work inside of finance is real. I mean, you ask any woman who works in finance and the stories are not great. So what will also happen at a very young age along those lines, right, with money is, this sounds silly, but again, it's a societal thing. And I love school teachers and it's not their fault. I want to say that very clearly. Again, we were all born into this and we got to break it apart together. Is that if you look at how many children, boys and girls, raise their hand in kindergarten, it's 50-50. It's pretty much 50-50. By the time you get to second grade, 5% of the girls that were raising their hands are still raising their hands. Now, why? Boys are 10 times more likely to get called on than girls. 10, not one or two. 10 times more likely to get called on than girls. And they get rewarded for speaking out and girls get punished for speaking out.
Right.
This is a trend.
I was that girl. You know, I was that little girl that sat in the front row. Oh, right. And I swear that every year my report card, which they still hand wrote, right, all those various things, but it said talks too much or things like that. Now, God bless my parents who went, because I had a very independent mother, you know, and my dad loved him dearly, but you know, he kind of let her run everything. But yeah, she was like, so, you know, and you're not moving her to the back row. She's going to sit in the front row. And I just, you know, I don't know, maybe it was the red hair. You know, I was just like, no, I'm not going to be ignored. And it would annoy me when I was.
And you were lucky. Because
I was very much,
they take that as a signal to shut down. So if we're being raised that way, right? And again, we're only talking about this so it can stop, right? Nobody, I don't ever want anyone to hear blame on this. This is a societal norm. And so as we talk about it, we can break it, right? Like I taught my son, I was like, when you've been called on a couple times, go, hey, Susie had her hand up. You haven't called on her yet. Do that. Like start to do it. And my daughter, I'd be like, hey, you go up to your teacher, you say, I was raising my hand like 5 times. Can you call on me tomorrow? Like, let's start breaking this down because there's no bad guy here, other than what we were all raised in. And it's time to stop.
Well, and when you're running the meetings,
that's where that comes from. Make
sure that you're asking for the women's opinions, even if you have to call them out and say, hey, Sarah, what do you think?
That's right. But this is where the mansplaining came from. This is where the interrupting in meetings came from. And by the way, ladies, I'll give you this one as my favorite. My last corporate job, I would be consistently interrupted by the CEO. And one day I just said, I am so sorry to be talking while you're interrupting. He never did that again. So take that one and run with it. But anyway, we see how this happened on both sides, right? It happened on both sides because of the way that we were raised. So we want to start to break that apart.
Right.
Let's go back to the fundamentals. If money is the most powerful tool we have access to and we feel powerless,
then we need
why
more
are we
money.
Think we should have it. There it is. That's exactly right. And so it's this understanding of power, which I would also like to break apart. So people on planet Earth at the moment have power and force confused. Being powerful is saying or doing what you need to say or do. And then this is the part nobody wants to deal with, taking what you get. That's the part everyone doesn't want to deal with. That's why social media is like, let me vomit on you and then I leave, right? We don't want to take the part that we have to be responsible for what we share. Force is making someone do what you want them to. Those are not the same thing.
Right.
And we have them confused. We've had them confused for a very long time. So this is about power and understanding that money gives you more access. Be a great person is not access to more force, despite how some people are using it. That's their choice. And I think what can happen is people see how people use money to kill other people's children, right? If we're going with like the oligarchs or whatever, right? Looking at what people are doing with money there, it's a scary thing. Well, I don't want to be like that. And that's where self-trust comes in. And this is the majority of the work that I do with people, especially when we're talking about abundance, is self-trust and healing that. Because if you trust yourself, you can have gobs and gobs and gobs of money and you will never change.
Right.
Because you will never be the servant of money. Money will always be your servant. And if we can get that mindset straight, all of a sudden the power, the force that, oh, I can't do it. The math is crazy. Like all that. Oh my God, I had a guy do this to me. Oh, when I was getting a car, he didn't even know what he said. He's like, we could finance it, do the percentage. And I looked at him, I go, do you know what you just said? And he goes, no. I said, don't do that to people.
Or you get ignored.
And I was like, don't do that. And he was like, is your husband coming? I was like, I don't have a husband. And no.
Yeah.
It's like this, like, no. And so I think we need to start to understand what money actually is, right? It's a resource, end of list, right? And then the internal work it takes to believe in ourselves enough to allow it in and to provide the world enough value that it comes rolling in. Because the more value we provide, the more money shows.
Right. And we have absolutely got to get better role models. And I mean, what I was thinking about when you were talking about this were the Real Housewives of wherever, right? All those TV shows. Now, I don't even watch the commercials for those because those drive me nuts. Because all they are showing is the pretty people have money and don't do anything. And, I don't want to see that. Why would I, obviously lots of people watch it because there's Housewives of wherever, lots of those on. But, I want to see the women that are the power figures. I mean, I'm thinking now this really is going to show how old I am. The Young and the Restless, right? The TV soap opera. The character, Mrs. Chancellor. Now she was, to put it nicely, a ball buster. And she ran Chancellor Industries and all of those various things, but she was a role model. And I remember, even thinking, wow, I want to be like that. Now she was kind of rough and mean and nasty, but at the same point, it was like, she didn't need anybody. She certainly didn't need a man. And I love that when we see those women who are stepping up and saying, I can do this. It's great to have these support systems.
Yeah.
But I am going to do this.
Yeah. And I think that's important. And I think also what you said about what we saw as younger people growing up and what's actually true, is we don't have to turn into men to be really, really successful.
Yeah. I was talking about that with somebody else. Women don't have to dress in suits anymore. Now, if you prefer that, that's fine. I mean, that's perfectly fine. But I don't own a business suit. Now, I used to. I had one wall in my closet that was all identical suits. It was like, okay, this is just a waste of money. But
so silly, I know.
Yeah, and then I lost a whole bunch of weight when I got sick, and I thought, I'm not gonna. I didn't like that. I just certainly didn't like wearing heels. Now I know you're a heel girl, but I didn't like wearing heels, and so I don't own a single suit. I have jackets, but I might be pairing them with jeans and going to a business meeting that way, and it's kind of like, this is who I am. Yeah. If you don't like it, that's fine. Yeah. You're not my people.
Agreed. And I think, one of the examples I think we have of that right now, my clients are like, Sarah, you have such a Taylor Swift fascination. I'm like, I do. And I mean, I love her stuff because my daughter, I'm glad my daughter can listen to her.
Yeah. You don't have to censor it. Right. Yeah.
It's so nice. Right. But that woman wears sparkles. She's done everything herself. She's fought for everyone in the industry, not just herself. She's given away hundreds of millions of dollars in bonuses, hundreds of millions of dollars to food, right? To food pantries in every city she's visited, and hasn't changed at all.
Right.
Like as a person. And I think that we can look at that example. You want to talk about the epitome of feminine, right?
Oh, yeah.
Feminine. Like,
and she has now a pretty strong boyfriend, right? You can't get much stronger than having a boyfriend who is, this big football player,
right?
But in no way does he, nope. And they're very many. I mean, they would be what people call a power couple, right? And she might ask for his advice, but it's still going to be her decision. I love something the other day. I saw Patrick Mahomes was saying, "Oh yeah, Taylor Swift is now designing plays for us."
Yeah, I saw that
You know,
too.
and
I
it's
thought that
like,
was hilarious.
you know,
Yeah.
if it now, you know, he's pretty funny, but you know, if she is cool, right? You know, but yeah, you know, it's okay to you know, she did not in any way become subservient.
No, no.
You
And she
know,
didn't
if he's
change
there,
and
if
she
he's
didn't.
not, she's the same.
That's exactly
Mhm.
right. And she didn't change who she was. She
Mhm.
didn't over sexualize
Mhm.
herself. She
Mhm.
just did what she wanted
Mhm.
to do. And she loves
Right.
pink and she loves sparkles and move
Mhm.
over because I'm wearing them. Right.
Mhm.
And I think that that's such a testament to where we
Mhm.
are and
Right.
where we're headed. And I think
Mhm.
that's
Mhm. Right. You know, and it is about really coming back and saying, who are we? Who are we? What do I want to be?
mhm,
And, you know, let's be honest. What role model do I want to be for someone else? You know, if
exactly
someone
right.
looks at me, what are they going to see?
hmm
You know, and folks, you know, whatever it is, that's great for the just a moms. Okay. If you want to be a mom, that's fabulous. You know, years ago when we had our 10-year high school reunion, and I've shared this before. So this is a while ago. Um, one of the people wanted to do, you know, how you do awards, right?
Yeah.
They came from this far away, all that stuff. She wanted to do who is the most successful. Now I had a graduating class of 32. So, you know, we still knew quite a bit about each other. But I looked at her and I said, "How do you determine that?" Well, for her, it was only money. You know, who
Mm.
and it was like, okay, first of all, how do you know how much people are making? And she kind of, you know, and I said, and how do we know that? Because to me, success is self-defined. You know, if I think I'm successful, I don't really care if somebody else thinks I am or not, right? But I said, you know, maybe our classmate who is the mom to 4 kids and you know all that, maybe she's the most successful, and so we ended up not giving out the award, right? But yeah, so it's you know, what are we thinking we're successful? Who cares what
hmm
anybody else thinks?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And there's another myth about money right there.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how much someone's
Right.
making, it
Mm-hmm.
matters how much they're keeping.
Right. Mm-hmm.
People
Yeah.
don't talk about that,
Well,
right? Because
and
somebody
you know
can
we
be 2 weeks away from bankruptcy and you don't
and we
know,
all know
right?
people who are fabulously wealthy or even well off and are absolutely depressed, not
Yes,
happy. You know,
exactly.
money really does not buy happiness.
It's a resource. End
Mm-hmm.
of list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, right. You know, and again, we have to help others. You know, and how can we do that? My mother passed away in March. Now, my mother, like I said, very strong, very independent woman. And you know, so we're going through now. I'm an only child, and so we're going through her apartment. And it was like, what do we do with all this stuff? I mean, you know, you took
Mhm.
out the personal memento stuff. And but we had beds, dressers, plates, all of that stuff that people, and I just didn't want to take it to Goodwill. And somebody told me, they said, you need to call the local women's shelter. And I went, what do they
Mm,
want with beds? And so I called this absolutely delightful woman. And she said, yeah, she said, we would love it because what we do is, you know, when a woman leaves an abusive relationship, frequently she has the clothes on her back and that's
that's
it.
right. That's
And
right.
so this organization put women up in apartments. And what they did was, I think their policy was the woman and you know kids, because usually there were kids. You know, they got the apartment for 3 months. Then they could choose to take over the lease, or they could move out and do
Oh,
whatever.
okay.
But that kind of gave them that safe and secure
Mm,
for you know that 3 month period. And so they thought getting beds, dressers, plates, pots, pans, I
anything.
mean, they just thought
Yeah.
that was that. And they came and they picked it up, and like I said, absolutely wonderful people. You know, we even gave them paintings to put on the walls
That's
because we
beautiful.
thought, you know,
Because it
let's make
matters.
it well, and we said let's
Yeah.
make it more like home for them. You know,
Mm,
and but you know, it was one of those things where my mom might have gone, but then she would have liked it, because it was all about how are we helping women.
right.
You know, and that's an extreme thing, but you know, just think about all of those things. And maybe it is that, you know, in the grocery store, we just say, hey, you know, I love what you're doing,
hmm
you know, smile at somebody, all of those things. How
All
can
those
we
things
lift
matter.
other women up?
Yeah. And we must,
Mm-hmm,
because there are so many who are
mm-hmm,
really struggling.
mm-hmm,
And it's funny that you said that's an extreme example.
mm-hmm,
I actually don't think it is that extreme. I think it's a
mm-hmm,
lot more common than we're
mm-hmm,
realizing, and
mm-hmm,
small gestures like
mm-hmm,
that matter so
mm-hmm,
much. And the other thing I love about that is it sends a message that there's enough.
mm-hmm.
that people have got you.
Right.
And it sends a message to us too, that we have enough. We have so much that we can actually start giving away stuff.
Yeah.
And it's so important for us to recognize that, because that is the opposite of the hoarding, crazy mentality that can cause us to over purchase, right? To keep everything, just keep, no, give it away. What are the 3 pairs of pants you need?
Right.
I get like really crazy about that stuff, because I think we all have way too much. And the freedom, oh my gosh, the freedom that comes from not worrying if you're going to have enough, it's just huge.
Right. Right. And it's funny. I love tiny houses. I think those are the coolest things in the world. And then I look around and go, no, because I have stuff. But it's also, it is, what do you need and what do you want are very different things.
That's right. And also remembering everything you choose to keep tells you something. It tells you something about yourself, right? Like that pile of stuff you're not doing on your desk, that tells you, you don't complete stuff, right? So it's really important to know what's around you, what you're choosing to keep around you, but then also recognizing how much that matters for other people. Right. So when you do donate or you do put something on the walls, how much that matters, and appreciating that and actually honoring our things instead of just disregarding them or consume disregard, but to actually be intentional. It just makes such a world of difference. And I got to tell you, you save so much money. You can put so much more in investments. You can invest in other people's company. You can give away more. It's unbelievable when you stop, when you pull yourself out of that cycle. Of, I have to have everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is, what people do you need around you? Time to divest of some of those and get those around you who really are going to be your cheerleaders.
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Sarah, this has been so much fun. We just have scratched the surface on this. And I think this is such an incredibly important topic. And so I would love to have you on again. Maybe after the election would be a good time to have this discussion again. But yeah, I'd love to have you on again. But tell us more about what it is that you do and what are the services that you provide.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am first and foremost a business coach, right? Like that's really what I do. And what tends to come into that is everything we've just talked about, right? People are like, I want more revenue. I'm like, great. Tell me about the first time you handled money, right? So I work with people one-on-one, a handful of people a year. And my signature program really is the Abundance Academy. And I created it for the very reason you just stated. We need people in our sandbox. We need playmates in our sandbox who are up to what we're up to, who are not afraid to say what they're struggling with. And I just absolutely love working with them. It is a year-long program because in all of my years, I've been a coach for 16 years now. I've really come to understand to transform someone's relationship to money and to abundance and to their own internal belief. It takes a year. And we have several people in the Abundance Academy that are there for their second year in a row. And I just love it. I love the friendships that get created, the money that's been made, the businesses that have been transformed. It is just absolutely my dream. Continue to work in that. And I'm so grateful I created it. And so are the women that are in it, because they are just phenomenal and they are really up to something. And I so appreciate their courage and their coachability and their belief in themselves that they really can turn everything around and start making more money than they thought was possible. And then watching them do it. It's amazing.
I love it. And how do they find you?
Sure. You can come on over to sarahwalton.com. That is Sarah with an H. And yes, it's Walton, like the Walmarts, or the family on TV, depending on your age. Yes.
Yep. Good old John Boy. Yeah.
I am not part of the Walmart family, but yes. So it's sarahwalton.com. You can find me in the Game On Girlfriend podcast. You can also find me on YouTube.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, this has been so much fun. And as I said, we will obviously have you on again. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Absolutely. Always. I don't know if it can be a final. But what I would love to say is that most people on planet Earth right now have time and money confused. You can always make more money, but you cannot create more time. So use the time that you have to add value to the world and to be with the people you love the most.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. Well, I am Deb Creer. I've been having a wonderful discussion with Sarah Walton. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.